Hi, folks. My name is Tom Cutler. I'm a prosthetist. I'm out in California, and I appreciate you folks allowing me to discuss a new type of amputee implant, something that will work for any one of our patients, not just a small portion of them. But in order for us to see why this other solution makes sense, we need to take a different approach and an understanding for the surgery itself. So let's take a look. The amputee implant, I call it the Amplant. Now, so that you know, we're still in the exploratory stage. I've filed a patent on it, but not being a surgeon, we're still in that phase where we get to design a new kind of implant that can be one type of gold standard. So low profile, anchor plate, central channel for blood. This is what we did. Ready? Right here at the bottom, we have 3 repeating issues: skeletal support, harnessing hip power, and keeping the tissue healthy. Now, when we look at the benefits, you realize they're all diabetics these days. So they're going to be struggling with their strength and other things. They're also contraindicated because of the high infection risk. A lot of these patients have been non-compliant. So why are we crowding a risky market for 15% of amputees? How do we know we're not creating an even larger problem? Well, why are we crowding? Because a lot of people don't like to be involved in something that's a failure, a salvage, okay? This right here will actually transform that. If we take a new approach at the surgery, we're gonna get into that in just a moment, we can actually jump from 15 to 45, maybe even 50%. Now, I've gotta make one statement about that 15%. I don't count closet prostheses. Okay. Only 15% of people in this demographic are using their legs on a daily basis. It's much higher. Autobot confirms 33% actually get a leg. But of those, most of them, a majority, leave them and only use them on special occasions. So we actually get more prosthetic candidates. But there's something else. Even if you're not using your leg. You see, I don't wear hiking boots around the house. A lot of times I just want to wear my flip-flops, or if you're wearing slippers or going barefoot. Now, if you have a skeletal support and can stand on the end of your leg, you can actually stand in a wheelchair while you brush your teeth. You don't need a prosthesis for that. Turns out knee dysarthrics wear their legs 1.3 hours, fewer hours during the day. Why? They're more functional without it. So you have fewer falls and a lower burden on the family and the insurance. We need to actually give them an option when they're not wearing the leg. So here's what I love for all of us. 60% fewer visits chasing atrophy. How many of you have fit a leg and go, man, I'm gonna be patting this thing every week for months. So the more we look, the more exciting it appears. But how did it come to be? From the 50s to the 80s. Here we go. We're gonna look at this. They used to close up the periosteum. Remember our theme? Weight bearing, closed bone marrow cavity, something going on with the IT band. That's that third element that we're going to be touching on. And I think you guys are going to love it. Nobody figured out what it was back then. Okay. This is what I'm pointing to. See that finger? That's my finger. An orthopedic surgeon said, it's the weight bearing. Oh, it's great. He never mentions the adductor longus being attached. He mentions the shape, the aggressive shape holding the leg, and he mentions the weight bearing, but we disregarded that. Now, even though we're going to be talking about the weaker hip, this was Frank Gottschalk. He did all 3 of those things here, okay? You'll notice the open medullary cavity in the picture. You'll also see the sharp edges with the no weight bearing. And then at the other one on the left, lower left, he removes the TFL and IT band to the medial side. You need to see this. That's because when you go up to the top, instead of speculating as to why knee dysarthritis did well, he didn't realize it was the skeletal support. He claimed it was the attachment of the adductors. So when you're losing the adductors and the femur flies out, he says, make it stop, not realizing that we want to harness this. And you're going to find out why. So he removes the IT band, which removes 30% of hip power. He removes weight bearing, open medullary cavity. But Frank Gottschalk, 10 years before this, said that the tensor fasciae lata on IT band is the most important hip abductor in 1989. Why? Well, it is. But we're going to get to that later. Next slide. That's on the next slide. muscle balance goal was misguided. We can have dysfunctional balance, which is balancing our ankle plantar flexors with ankle dorsiflexors. That doesn't make sense. We need to focus on functional balance. You balance your hip abductors to your hip abductors because walking is bipedal. We don't ever have any intra-limb balance. We have inter-limb balance. We don't have plantar flexors and dorsiflexors balanced. We have plantar flexors and plantar flexors balanced. When you realize, you will see that time and again, we want absolutely everything balanced, and we can't have that, but we need to move on. Not only do we have a different body, what happens when you, I love this slide, I do, okay? See, nothing happens when you weaken the glutes, all right? Poll, 2015, experimentally reduced hip abductors, all right? Why? Because tensor fascia lata is primary only on flat ground. On the hills, at 15 degrees flexion, you'll lose your tensor fascia lata. We have two different systems. Now, we've been trying to put everything from, crank it up for strength. We look at strength this way. What if we have a spectrum and we have flat terrain and we have hills and stairs and we have a spectrum in between? So you're going to find out we actually have two different systems. IT band, in theory, 30%. IT band for amputees and riser, both of those, if you look at the 30%, it pops up. You go, wow, there it is. We've always known about it, but we've never looked at the IT band. The IT band provides us with a terrain-dependent gait configuration. This is how we as humans are unique. Everybody else has one system. We have two, but let's jump on. Issue 2, open medullary cavity, okay? The slide in the middle is a kid that died of fat embolism syndrome after his amputation. The one on the right shows that even with our rehab, we can improve strength, but we can't improve cardio. And the one on the left shows that we have transcortical vessels were only discovered in 2019. Let's get to that. Middle photo, fatal fat embolism syndrome, okay? Open medullary cavity has 85% fat cells. Those coat your alveolar membranes, and that inhibits your oxygen transfer. On the right-hand side, I was showing you blocked pulmonary structures. You can't regain that oxygen transfer to improve cardio. And the one on the left, any circulatory system has to be closed, compromising 80% of the blood supply. So when I discovered this last year in 2020, I was like, wait, we need to preserve that central canal and perforate the walls to provide blood supply to the distal aspect of the femur. Skeletal support. We only have about 2 minutes left, so I need to move along. This is the Keep Walking implant. Now, it came about because the universal principle is nowhere else in orthopedics is non-skeletal support acceptable, is it? You ever wonder about that? We hold our patients up with skin. See, any implant providing skeletal support, this one does. Now, it's an intermediate step. It had great results, 25% faster walking. This is wonderful. Now, it's too long. It's 6 inches long, only necessary if you're going percutaneous, but 87.5% of the patients refuse to go percutaneous. They go, hey, this fixed all my problems. So if we no longer have to do that, we have an option to go shorter. And they also have the unnecessarily large surface, but they figured we got to make it look like the condyle, but the condyle is an articulating surface. You don't need it. If you have your calcaneus, we land in a very small spot. Now, granted, you may get heel spurs if it goes bad, but for just weight bearing, there's no IT band attachment, so you're missing that. Blood supply to distal cortical wall is blocked by the stem. It's a great step, but it can be simpler and better. Okay, let's wrap this up. The Amplant, simple and safe. You see that front yellow one, how it actually has that little channel going down? So we would just do a press fit like a regular hip replacement. We've been doing them for 60 years. Percutaneous still has its place for those who want it. Skeletal support. This is what I love, is once we provide an improved presentation, what then do we do with socket design? That's super exciting. Finally, we can already get approval because of all the work done by percutaneous. What if we scale back and provide an even safer one? We'll actually provide better approval. Now, all of this is contingent on one thing. We have to stop denying that there's issues with the surgery. But I'm just a prosthetist. I can't get any further. Hopefully you folks will be able to, and we could start a great conversation here. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. You've been a wonderful crowd. Thanks so much. Now I'll stop with the recording. Here we go.